Your name?
Glenn R. Jones.
And where do you live, Glenn?
I live at 30 Dusty Highway, Argyle, New York.
And where'd you live when you lived in Hoosick Falls?
Well, first I was born here at the health center, and I lived at 32 Cary Avenue. And then after the war, I bought a place up on High Street. And since then, back then, I sold it and I moved away, and that burned down up there. And now my niece lives in that locality on the same lot, and she built a house there.
Yeah, what was her name?
Her name is Gwendolyn Wright.
Gwendolyn Wright. Oh, Gilwright's the historian for the town right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? All right, now, what did you do before 1943? Where'd you go to school?
I went to school here at Hoosick Falls, and I went through my third year, and I didn't graduate, but I always claimed that I went on my senior trip during the Second World War.
I see.
Because before that I worked for Alex Slocum for 20 cents an hour up to the Sicily station here in Hoosick Falls. And it'd be on the corner of Church and River Street.
I see. And you enlisted or joined the Merchant Marine, you told me. Would you tell us about that?
Well, I joined the Merchant Marine in 1943. I turned, when I was 17, I turned 18 in boot camp in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. I did my basics there. I had about between 4 and 5 weeks of training, and then I shipped out on the James G. Birney, which is a freighter made by Henry Kaiser. She was 60 feet. She had a 60-foot beam, 420 feet long, and she drafted about 20 feet of water loaded.
All right. And where were you on your way on your first trip?
Well, on the first trip, we went to Palermo, Sicily. If you want to know...
Where'd you leave out of New York?
We left out of New York Harbor.
I see.
We picked up convoy, and then we sailed...
What were you carrying?
We were carrying everything from Eisenhower jackets to tanks.
I see.
Yeah.
And you started out and you were going to Italy.
We went to Palermo, Sicily.
All right.
And we sailed up the coast of America, up through Newfoundland. We met convoy there, then we run the ice pack out of Newfoundland. And for the reason we run the ice packs when the ice was out there was the submarines didn't dare venture in there. And then when we hit open sea, we had destroyers and battle wagons and escorts to take us across.
I see. All right. And then what happened after that in Salerno? Where'd you go after that?
Well, we went to the Rock of Gibraltar, and there the convoy was split to go different places in the Mediterranean. Let's see, and then we stayed there for about a week to pick up another convoy, and we got our orders to go on through to Palermo, Sicily, and this was right after George Patton, General George Patton, liberated Palermo in Sicily before he made the invasion into Salerno, into Italy.
I see. And then what happened then after what ship they stick? Where'd you go after that?
Well, I stayed on the James G. Birney for about 9 months, and we were shuttling the 1st Armored Division and the Army boys and some of the Seabees out of Africa, because that's when they was driving Rommel out of Africa.
Yeah. And
as those men became less needed there, we were bringing them up to Italy, into Naples, into Palermo, and
Yeah.
we were just shuttling these guys back and forth.
They made you into a little troop.
A troop carrier. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Then what went on in your life as far as the Merchant Marine was concerned?
Well, some of the things that I do remember is the USS Meadowpan. She was a United Freight freightliner. She was a she belonged in the United Fruit Panamanian fruit liner, and she was carrying wounded and men going back to England for bivouac to rest up.
Yeah.
And off the coast of Africa, about 20 miles off the coast of Africa, she took a torpedo and she went down, and we were ordered, our ship was ordered to pick up any survivors, but not to break column to do it. So we didn't pick up any survivors. I saw no live survivors in the water. What people, the personnel I did see, they had on life jackets. They were floating face down, face up, but we picked up no survivors on my ship. And that's the only thing I can tell you about the SS Meadowpan. But she was carrying an Army payroll, and I think since the war, the salvage divers have went out and salvaged whatever they could offer her.
I see. All right, and then go on and tell us what else happened in the Merchant Marine after that.
Well, as I said, we shuttled between England and Africa and Wales to the war zones up in Italy, northern part of Africa, up through the boot, up into Messina, at Messina, went up around into Berry, you know, and then as the war dragged on, we came home. I come home for 30 days. I picked up another ship, and again, we was loaded with everything from airplanes ready to fly to airplanes and crates ready, you know, in parts, and food supplies, cigarettes, you name it, anything that those soldiers over there had wanted, the Merchant Marine got it over there.
I see. And then you went back towards England again and at this new second ship? Or?
Yeah, we went to Liverpool on that one. And then we picked up convoy, headed for Africa, and Rommel was still being driven out of Africa, and that was my first engagement with the enemy. And these were Nazi bombers that came over probably about 9 o'clock at night, because it was dark. It was dark, and we would pick them out with the searchlights. And I did see one or two get shot down. Whether our ship shot one down or not, I can't tell you. We all said we did, but hey, you know.
Yeah.
But that was my first engagement in battle, was in Oran, Africa.
Well, just keep telling us, you know, until you got out of the Marine, the Merchant Marine. Where else did you? What else happened? Any interesting stories, anecdotes?
Well, there's a lot of interesting stories, I guess. I met a soldier. His name was Rupenthal, and we became very, very close friends. And it was his job to sign all the soldiers on aboard our ship and sign them all off wherever they disembarked overseas. And just a few months ago, I found out that he died with Alzheimer's disease, and it makes me very sad, because we really did become very close during the war. And even though he was a soldier and I was in the maritime.
Well, what about now? You're getting close into 45. Your explanation, right? We're getting into 45, and then the war was in Europe.
Yeah, well, we had sailed along the coast there for 2 or 3 months, shuttling back and forth, and Eisenhower was getting ready to go into France, and our ship, I'm reluctant to tell you the name of it because I was on several ships, but I think I think it was a Lafcadio Hearn, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
She still was a Kaiser Liberty ship, and we were loaded with scrap iron, and we were in the port off of Liverpool, and the ships were out on the high seas and in port, and we were just muling around. We weren't at anchor. We might have had an anchor halfway down or something like that, but we were just coasting with the waters because we were to go into, when Eisenhower gave the word, we were to go around and get into the channel and head overseas. But the weather was terrible. Eisenhower had millions of men waiting to go, and with our ship, we were to go over and sink it, scuttle it, and use it for a breakwater, you know. Well, anyways,
That's interesting.
as it happened, on the 5th of, I think it was the 5th, that was the day before D-Day,
Yeah, in June.
and we were ordered to go home. A whole bunch of us was ordered to go home because there were so many of us. They was afraid word was going to get out to the Germans that what was happening there, even though it was so cloudy, they couldn't see us from the planes. They couldn't see us from any place, you know. But Eisenhower gave the order, and so we had a small convoy, and then we came back.
To the United States, or to?
Yeah, we came back to Norfolk.
I see.
And we emptied out at Norfolk, and then again, I came home for a couple days, and then I picked up another ship out of New York and sailed again.
I see.
So I wasn't in the invasion.
I see.
Close, but
close enough.
close enough.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
I see. And then you, while the Normandy and invasion and into Europe, you were shuttling back and forth
Yeah.
between New York and England,
Yeah.
bringing supplies and
Yeah.
stuff.
And every chance, every time we could, see, we sailed up the coast and got up off of Greenland and Iceland, Greenland mostly, to pick up that ice pack. And we would run the ice pack so the submarines would leave us alone till we hit open seas. Then we hit open seas, yes, the destroyers and the gunboats would take us across.
Was there a decrease in the amount of submarines as 45 came about?
Oh, yes. See,
Then it became,
yes, the big purge of submarines was over, I think, the end of 42, the beginning of 43.
yeah,
90% of them were gone, but there was a few drifters out there.
I see.
And the boys that really got in trouble was the guys on the Murmansk run. Because see, they run off the coast of Norway and Finland.
Yeah, and they had the German planes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, all right, so then you came home.
Yeah.
All right, what did you do after you got home?
After the war?
Yeah, after the war.
Well, let's see, after the war, I started working, I bought a truck off in Gardner over here, and I started working the lumber camps.
I see.
And I worked the lumber camps for 2 or 3 years until West Virginia shut down. And then I moved to Argyle, and I drove truck over the road for a good many years. And when I gave that up, I went in construction, did that for a good many years. And as of right now, I've been supervisor of my town. I've been there for 10 years.
Oh, great.
And,
Did you get married and have children?
oh yes, I married my high school sweetheart, Eleanor Lonis. She was the May Queen of the school. We had 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. My son is due to retire out of the Navy in about 4 years. He's an air controller. He was on the Midway. Since then, she's been decommissioned and scuttled. He was on the Enterprise, sailed on the Enterprise, and he's a chief petty officer now. He lives in Jacksonville, Florida. My daughter, April Lee, was born here at the health center, and she's a nurse in Glens Falls Hospital, has been for the last 25 years or so.
Now, you said what was your position in Argyle? You're the
Supervisor,
town supervisor.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about it? I mean, we're on tape. It's your tape.
Well, I'll tell you some interesting things that we did when we got ashore. They were interesting to me anyways. Let's take Mirs El Kabir, Africa. Not much has ever been said or written about that place, but it's a little town on the coast of Africa with not much. But underneath the sea, there was a ledge that stuck out in the water for maybe 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. And the Nazis, through Polish and French slave labor, built a small city down under the water and carved us all out. Well, that was a submarine base. And the submarines would go down under that ledge and you could bomb it forever and you wouldn't even chip the paint, you know.
Never heard that, yeah.
And that, I mean, that was an oddity. And then they had, I didn't see any of this, but they had a lot of pictures, paintings, and gold and all that stuff.
Yeah, that they were stealing out and putting away.
And then again in Le Havre, France, when we went into Le Havre, I was in on that one. And I don't know whether we did it or the French did it, but it was right at the time just before Germany took over France, and the French scuttled a lot of their ships, and a lot of them were right in Le Havre Harbor. And Le Havre is a city that's built on the cliffs, and you got into a big elevator, a monstrous elevator, like maybe a 40 by 40 elevator, and you push the lever, pull the lever down. It was all steam driven, and cables would take you up to the next level. So you went up there and you went on the next level. They had shops and things, and you go up the next level, right on top of Le Havre. Now the Navy gunboats, for 5 days, the Navy gunboats blasted Le Havre, France, and up in those cliffs. And again, with slave labor, the Germans had built into the rock these great excavations for the recoilless guns, and the gun would fire and go back into the cliffs, you know. This is right on top. And our planes bombed and bombed and bombed and bombed the darn things. And so when our boys went into Le Havre, unbeknown to us and everybody else, sure, the Germans had the guns, but they only had about 3 or 4 rounds for each one. So our boys went in. They met heavy competition, but there wasn't the slaughter in Le Havre that they expected, you know.
I see. Well, good. I thank you for coming down all the way from Argyle. We appreciate it.
I'm glad I did.
And we got a good tape of you, and we'll...
And you are?
Pardon?
Who you are? Who are you?
I'm George Spear.
Oh, George Spear. Out in the Mediterranean.